We call this tech essentialism. It's decision-making in the 21st century in a technological world. And the thing about black swans is the go-to board member or CEO's language for I didn't prepare, I didn't think about it, I didn't spot what I should have. Hey everyone. So this is a session on thinking about the AI dynamics and in the boardroom in the context of the broader topic. I'm Roger Spitz, as you've heard. I chair the Disruptive Futures Institute, where we think about systemic change and how to have an operating system, sense-making and decision-making in our complex, deeply uncertain world. And AI is one of those underlying drivers of change. And I think the starting point is we hear a lot the word disruption. It's used in the topic for the theme. It's probably used over 100 times in today's anything you listen to, including this event. We focus on disruption in a way that's slightly different, which is systemic. In other words, the whole idea of looking at disruption as in a product, innovation, or technology is obsolete in our mind. And when you look at the Fed's inability to think about interest rates or any of the central banks, understand how they can reach suddenly the highest interest rates in the past half century and think they can control it when they can't and admit that, you got to understand that what's coming out of the model, what's kind of systemic change is very different. When you think about Silicon Valley Bank, which went insolvent, it didn't necessarily just go insolvent because it made assumptions which were poor assumptions around long-term interest rates or the value of technology. It went insolvent also because the second on Sand Hill Road in Menlo Park, one venture capitalist told a buddy or someone, I hope you don't have all your money with SVB. That second, 200 million people can know about it. And that information is also disinformation, and it's also linked to AI. So systemic disruption is really, you can't silo it, and its change is a constant. And it means that we're in an environment which is deeply unpredictable. Now, the topic we want to think about for 2 seconds altogether with my co-speakers, who all have extraordinarily interesting and in many ways much more interesting vantage points than me. I'm an ex-M&A investment banker, and these are founders who run and develop technology companies, and you'll see for yourself the caliber. Where I come from, I'm thinking about system change and unpredictability and decision-making in that mode and what it means for AI and decision-making. And the way I like to look at it is as a value chain. And in that value chain, you can see that we're moving from optimization to analytics and to some kind of co-creation with machines. And that is fine and understood by machines, and that is helpful for decision-making. What we're going to look at is an area where we believe that we are delegating decision outcomes to machines in a way that has risks for boards and governance, and that's going to be our focus. And it's really to do with complex systems which have features where humans really need to sort of keep the handle on the gears. And we're going to make a little distinction which might seem slightly disconnected from the topics of governance or AI, but which we believe is absolutely essential, which is the distinction between complicated and complex. It might sound kind of terminology, but effectively, complicated is something you understand ex ante what the outcome is and what the result is. It's linear, it's predictable. I think some of our colleagues earlier used the terms known unknown. It's things which there's a range of right answer, you can rely on experts. And that AI is very good with that. In that environment, you sense, you analyze, and you respond to a situation. And that's how do you send a probe to Mars, how do you fix a plane, how do you do drug discovery with AI platforms. We understand that. Now, complex, you only understand retrospectively what the outcome is. It's unpredictable, it's nonlinear and exponential. It has unknown unknowns, and in this environment, which is constantly in flux, basically it's emergent and it's a discovery process. And because it's deeply unpredictable, machines are not necessarily going to help in that state at that point in time of the unknown unknowns. And in this mode, it's going to be the Amazon, for instance. If you build a hotel or change the path of a road in the Amazon, things are constantly evolving, emergent, and there's secondary and different kind of impacts. And that is in the complex arena where we need to think about what it means to make decisions if it's deeply unpredictable and you're relying on machines for those decision outcomes. We call this tech essentialism. It's basically existentialism in the sense of Heidegger or Kierkegaard or Jean-Paul Sartre or Simone de Beauvoir It's decision-making in the 21st century in a technological world. And the very important ramification of that state of the world of deep unpredictability is that if you're relying on machines for outcomes which they may not be better suited in than humans because it's deeply unpredictable, as humans, we might be delegating decision authority and capabilities and actually de-skilling ourselves. And in that context, for boardrooms or even management for that matter, the danger is that you're putting emphasis on certain initiatives and funding and development in AI on areas where the human capabilities and the investment in humans is important. And because we're not good at evaluating and making decisions in complex environments, we're kind of tempted to just let the machines do that. Now, unfortunately, there's no data on the future. So you can have whatever AI and algorithms and engineers and data you want. There is no data on the future. And the more uncertain, the less predictability, and therefore the less AI can help. Now, to wrap up these few minutes before I pass the sort of some thoughts and perspectives from our esteemed colleagues, I want to briefly touch upon what we call the AI's complex five. I'm from South Africa originally. The big five in safari are the big animals that you're scared of most, the lions, the leopards, the rhinos. But in the complex world, the most dangerous are not necessarily the biggest animals. We'll start with the butterfly effect. It's what we know it to be. The interconnected events that might seem unrelated or maybe unrelated that can cause things that are just simply unpredictable. Let's move between the spectrum from known knowns to unknown unknowns. The gray rhino is charging at you. You know what's happening. It's the pandemic the day it's breaking out. And in that environment, you really need to avoid being trampled. You need to anticipate what's happening and take decisions immediately. It's urgent. It's March 2020 for the pandemic. And the thing, you don't want to keep your head in the sand. And the term comes from a well-known author, Michelle Wacker, who kindly wrote an endorsement, as did Manoj from IOD for my new book. And the thing about known knowns is that if you ignore it, you'll be trampled. And disinformation and the need for the right skills, our predecessors, the previous talk, were talking about the lack of, how do you get the right skills on the board? You need to upgrade the board to get that. You need to upgrade the teams and the whole culture of the company. You can't just kind of, there's no one around. I mean, it's incumbent on every company to develop people that become the right board members for their company or others. And those great rhinos of disinformation is serious, and we need to think about it as board members and a society. The black elephant is the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is something that you should be talking about, but also should be doing something about, but you sort of defer. It's the pandemic before it becomes a pandemic and a global pandemic. It's certain geopolitical moves that might happen and that we're kind of just keeping our heads in the sand. It's what might happen to AI. And here, when we're thinking about the importance to reinvent education, of reskilling, that's our black elephant. We are basically seem unwilling or unable to mobilize action, align stakeholders, and do something with it. The black jellyfish is very interesting. The black jellyfish is, with climate change, temperature of the ocean rises, acidity and temperature increases, there are more jellyfish. First order implication, we understand that, or we think we do. Suddenly the nuclear plants break down, ships break down, and these are secondary and tertiary implications. As board members and for governance with technology, it's unexpected, whether it's AI or any technology. And so we need to understand that black jellyfish, which is the next order reverberations that can cascade from something you think you understood, but you don't. And the final one is unknown unknown, which might be artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence, and basically or systemic catastrophic failures because we develop systems which might have single point of failure. And the thing about black swans and all of these things is that the reality is that they are not fixed boxes. Black swans is the go-to board member or CEO's language for I didn't prepare, I didn't think about it, I didn't spot what I should have. The reality is the way you see the world, the more intentional you are about early signs, about understanding next order implications, about dealing with the elephant in the room, the less it becomes a gray rhino charging at you. And so the very important thing here is that don't be a board member that becomes the go-to taxonomy of it's a black swan when it isn't. A black swan is truly, absolutely unpredictable. Many things aren't. So this is really what we wanted to share as a first introduction, that tech essentialism is really that existence of humans in a world which is technological. We cannot separate decision-making from our technological world. We can no longer exist in a world which is not a technological world, and we are no longer have that exclusivity on decision-making. And the final comments I want to leave you with is really the difference between prescriptive, predictive, and descriptive. And as you move towards predictive and prescriptive, which is where you're relying more on decision outcomes from machines, you really got to think very carefully as humans, what aspects do we feel machines are good at, and there are many on the complicated box, and where do we need to be very careful so that as we look at the three horizons over time, you're moving from the present to a hyper-augmented world of AI, which is doing wonderful things, and which as a board we can encourage many initiatives around drug discovery and many other miracles. But we need to be careful that we don't end up on a sort of third horizon over time where the C-suite becomes replaced by the A-suite, as in algorithms, in the sense that we become less capable of sense-making and decision-making in deep uncertainty and delegate decision outcomes to machines, especially in areas which are not necessarily where AI is most versatile or capable in, because there is no data in the future, and the present is deeply unpredictable. So we wanted to leave you these thoughts, not meaning to do publicity plug, but it so happens that Manoj was kind enough to write an endorsement around the book. The topics are very related to the conference, and the book has just come out, and so if people are vaguely intrigued or interested, it's available to purchase. And on that note, I would like to pass over the relay stick to Mohan.